Mystery teachings reveal 5 forbidden abilities dark chosen ones carry. There comes a moment in every seeker's life when the light no longer satisfies, when the polished words of surface-level spirituality begin to feel like sand slipping through the fingers. You've listened to the affirmations, you've chanted the mantras, you've read the books that promise peace and manifestation, and yet something deeper calls, something more ancient, more raw, more real. That calling is not always made of light. Sometimes it emerges from the shadows, and only those with the courage to look into that abyss will ever find what lies hidden beneath the veil of ordinary life. We are taught from a young age to fear the dark, not just the absence of light, but the unknown, those aspects of self and soul that don't fit into neat categories of good and bad. But what if I told you that within that darkness there are keys to power so profound they were hidden away by the very systems that claim to protect us? What if those labeled dark or forbidden are actually the ones who carry the deepest, most transformative spiritual gifts?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
I'm not talking about something as simple as rebellion or edgelording your way into mysticism. No, I'm talking about the real path, the ancient mystery teachings passed down not through books but through initiation, suffering, and vision. The teachings that whisper across the dreams of those who are ready. If you're still watching, if you haven't clicked off to some video promising instant bliss or third-ep awakenings, then you might be one of them, one of the dark chosen ones. But why dark? Why not simply gifted or awakened? Because the road here isn't paved in light. It's forged in the crucible of inner conflict, ego death, and the brutal honesty of shadow work. The abilities these initiates carry are not handed out like candy. They are earned through trials that most people would run from. These are not gifts for the faint of heart. They are burdens and blessings. They are the reason some walk alone in the world, misunderstood by even the most spiritual among us. The first forbidden ability is the power of true energetic perception. While many speak of vibes and energy, the chosen ones don't just feel energy, they see it, read it, manipulate it. Not in the flashy, cartoonish way Hollywood portrays magic, but in a subtle, precise, and terrifyingly real manner. Imagine walking into a room and instantly knowing who is lying, who is hiding pain, who is siphoning energy from others. Imagine knowing when someone is thinking about you not as a guess, but as a felt impression in your body, like a whisper on your skin. Imagine recognizing the energetic signature of a place or object and knowing its history, its trauma, its power. This is not imagination, this is a cultivated sense, sharpened like a blade over years of inner silence and brutal self-honesty. But there's a catch. You can't turn it off. Once awakened, this perception becomes your constant companion. You feel everything, and everything feels you. That's why so many of the chosen hide. They don't go to parties, they don't stand in crowds, they withdraw, not out of arrogance but out of necessity. Have you ever felt the pain of a stranger so deeply it brought you to tears for no reason? Have you ever known that someone close to you was lying even when they smiled at you with love? That's the burden of this gift. Can you carry it without collapsing? Can you hold truth even when it isolates you? The second forbidden ability is ego transmutation. This is so rare because it requires a complete deconstruction of self. Let me ask you something. Who are you without your name, your story, your trauma, your wins and losses? Who are you when no one is watching, when even your own thoughts fall silent? Most people never go there. They're too busy building the mask. But the dark chosen ones are called to destroy it, and in that destruction they discover something most humans never taste: the ability to shift identity at will. They can become silence, they can become rage, they can become compassion, not because they are pretending, but because they've stepped behind the curtain of the ego and found the controls. They know that there is no fixed self, only roles played by consciousness. And so they become shapeshifters of the soul. They can mirror your wounds. They can disarm your defenses. They can hold space for your transformation while remaining untouched by your illusion. But again, this isn't a carnival trick. This is a result of dying many deaths within themselves. They've sat through the nights when the soul screams and no one answers. They've watched their identity unravel until nothing remained but awareness itself. Could you survive that? Could you live without your mask? The third forbidden ability is dark empathy. Not the sweet hallmark version of empathy, but the kind that can feel even the darkest intentions and still love anyway. This is the empathy that sees the predator, the manipulator, the narcissist, and instead of running, looks them in the eye and says, "I see your wound beneath your weapon." This is not naivety, this is power. Because true dark empathy is the ability to love without being deceived. It's the ability to understand the pain behind cruelty, to hear the scream behind the silence, and to see the child behind the monster. But this empathy also makes them dangerous, because they can blend in, they can speak your language, they can walk among shadows without becoming lost. And that's why they're feared, because they cannot be manipulated. They see through the masks of the world. They see the corruption in systems we're told to trust. They see the false light of gurus who sell transcendence without transformation. They see and they remember. What would happen if the world was filled with people who could not be lied to? The fourth forbidden ability is the command of inner silence. While others chase peace through meditation apps and breathing techniques, the chosen ones have gone to war within themselves to earn silence. Not numbness, not shutdown, but a stillness so deep it becomes a weapon. In that silence, they hear the voice behind the voices. They receive guidance not from outside, but from the origin of their own being. They don't need constant validation. They don't panic when alone. They sit in the void, and the void speaks back. Can you sit in silence for hours without reaching for your phone, your thoughts, or your fears? Can you face the part of you that feels empty and realize it's not empty but infinite? The fifth forbidden ability is the echo of ancient memory. This is the most elusive, the most sacred. It arrives as dreams, as déjà vu, as the feeling that you've done all of this before, because you have. The dark chosen ones often carry soul memories from lifetimes where they walked as seers, oracles, warriors, or healers, but not the sanitized versions. They remember the betrayals, the burnings, the exiles. They remember the price of power, and yet they return again and again. Why? because they are bound by a vow older than language to awaken the world one soul at a time. And now I ask you, which of these abilities calls to you? Which one feels like something you've known but forgotten? Could it be that you are one of them? The trial of awakening, why the dark chosen ones must suffer before they rise. Before any flame can illuminate, it must first burn. Before any soul can carry divine presence, it must first be broken open. This is the path of the dark chosen ones, not by punishment, not by accident, but by sacred design. You might ask, why must those touched by such rare power walk through fire before stepping into their gifts? Why must awakening begin with wounds that seem too deep to ever heal? Because only through suffering do we discover what cannot be taken from us. Only through the collapse of everything false do we find what is eternally real. The world teaches us early to avoid pain. We are told to seek happiness, to chase success, to construct a life of comfort. But the chosen ones are marked by a different rhythm. Their lives are often laced with early trauma, betrayal, loss, or isolation. On the surface, it might look like misfortune, but underneath, it is a sacred initiation. These experiences are not obstacles, they are alchemical furnaces. Each heartbreak, each abandonment, each moment of despair is a chisel carving away the illusions of the ego, and in that hollow space, something ancient begins to stir. Have you ever wondered why your life has felt heavier than most? Why you seem to carry emotions that are not yours, or sense things that others ignore? Have you ever looked around and felt like an alien in your own family, your own culture, your own body? That's not madness, that's memory. That's the soul whispering that you are not here to blend in, you are here to transform. But transformation is violent. It tears away the masks you didn't know you were wearing. It rips open the wounds you tried to bury. It demands that everything not rooted in truth must die. And so the dark chosen ones suffer not because they are cursed, but because they are being purified. Suffering in its deepest form is not cruelty, it is initiation. It is the universe saying, you are ready to see beyond the veil. Most people will never touch this level of awakening because they will do anything to avoid pain. But the chosen ones, they stay. They sit in the fire, they scream, they break, they bleed, but they stay. And in their staying, they become something more than human. They become vessels. But here's the secret. The suffering is never random. It is precise. It will target the exact illusions you've built your identity upon. If you rely on the approval of others, it will strip you of belonging. If you depend on your intellect, it will drown you in confusion. If you cling to control, it will throw you into chaos. This is not punishment, it is liberation. Because once you lose everything you thought you needed, you discover what you truly are. And what is that? You are silence. You are will. You are the observer behind thought, the breath beneath emotion, the awareness beyond form. You are not the story you were told. You are not your trauma, your gender, your race, or even your name. You are the one who has watched it all unfold. And in that realization, power returns. Not the power of dominance or ego, but the power of presence. The power to witness pain without flinching, the power to walk into darkness and not be consumed, the power to become a mirror through which others see their own truth. Suffering also serves another sacred function. It creates compassion that cannot be faked. The chosen ones don't preach from pedestals, they kneel in the ashes. They don't offer hollow advice, they offer their scars. Because they've been there, they've known the nights when the soul feels like a cage. They've tasted the madness of awakening when reality splits open and nothing makes sense. They've walked through the desert of the void, where even the divine feels absent, and they survive. That survival is their offering. That survival is their initiation. But here's the paradox. The moment you stop resisting the suffering is the moment it begins to transmute. When you stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is this trying to reveal in me, everything changes. The fire that once burned you becomes the flame that guides you. The pain that once crippled you becomes the doorway to your gift. But you must be willing to see it. You must be willing to stop running. Are you? Because here's the truth. Not everyone who suffers awakens. Some become bitter, some collapse, some turn their pain outward and become destroyers. The difference is choice. The chosen ones are not selected by fate. They are forged by fire and chosen by their own willingness to rise. They are the ones who refuse to let pain define them. They are the ones who, even in their darkest hour, whisper to the void, I am not done yet. So if you're hurting right now, if your life has become a storm you can't outrun, if you feel like everything you built is crumbling around you, don't run, stay, listen, because this might not be your destruction. This might be your initiation, the trial before your rise. The moment the universe asks you, are you ready to remember who you truly are? The hidden temple within, unlocking the soul codes buried in your DNA. There is a temple that no map can reveal, no satellite can detect, and no traveler can stumble upon by accident. This temple is not made of stone or wood or gold. It is made of memory, of vibration, of ancient codes that hum within your very cells. And if you are among the dark chosen ones, this temple lives within you. It calls to you not with words, but with a silent ache, a feeling that there is something inside you waiting to be activated, something asleep that has been dreaming across lifetimes for the right moment to awaken. That moment is now. The greatest illusion, we are taught, is that we are ordinary, that our bodies are nothing more than biological machines, that our minds are nothing more than software running on a brain. But the chosen ones feel the lie. They know there is more. They felt it in the tremble of their intuition, in the way synchronicities line up like cosmic breadcrumbs, in the way dreams sometimes feel more real than waking life. That knowing comes from the soul codes, ancient data embedded in their DNA by lifetimes of sacred experience, trauma, wisdom, and power. Science is only beginning to grasp what mystics have always known, that DNA is not just a genetic blueprint, but a spiritual archive. Hidden within its spirals are keys to realms long forgotten, and only those with the strength to face their shadow, to walk through the trial of suffering, are given access to unlock it. These codes cannot be read through microscopes. They unfold only through inner silence, sacred intention, and the courage to remember what the world has worked so hard to make you forget. When you begin to awaken these codes, it doesn't look like fireworks or instant enlightenment. It begins quietly. You may start to dream in strange symbols. You may feel yourself drawn to languages, cultures, or practices you've never studied, but somehow already understand. You may find your body responding to certain frequencies, sounds, or patterns with recognition, not reason. That's the temple stirring. That's the ancient part of you, the part that remembers the rites, the chants, the rituals of power. These are not things you are learning, they are things you are remembering. Have you ever held an object and felt a sudden wave of emotion crash through you? Tears without reason or without explanation? Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and felt the weight of 1,000 stories pass between you in silence? That is the temple opening. These moments are not accidents, they are activations. Each one is a knock on the inner gate, a signal from the soul saying, "Pay attention, you are not who you think you are." But unlocking these codes requires more than meditation and crystals. It requires devotion to truth, especially the truth that hurts. Because the soul codes are protected by your own unresolved pain. They are buried beneath the identities you built to survive. To access them, you must be willing to dissolve. You must let go of who you were taught to be so you can become who you already are. This is why so few walk this path. It demands everything, but it gives back more than you can imagine. Inside the temple of your being lies knowledge that can bend probability, shift timelines, and awaken dormant senses. You begin to sense timelines diverging in your choices. You begin to feel the future before it happens. Your thoughts begin to shape reality, not through force but through alignment. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop reacting and start remembering. You begin to embody the archetype of the initiate, the seer, the alchemist, not as a costume, but as your natural state. And yet there is a sacred humility that comes with this power, because the more you awaken, the more you realize how much has been veiled from the world. You see how deeply humanity has been programmed to forget, and it humbles you. It breaks your heart open, because now you are not just awakening for yourself, you are becoming a beacon for others. Your healed wounds become maps. Your activated codes become signals for those still lost in the dark. So I ask you this, are you willing to enter the temple? Not a temple in the Himalayas or hidden in the jungle, but the one behind your ribs, in the quiet space just before sleep, in the breath that pauses between inhale and exhale. Are you ready to activate what has been waiting within you all along? The final veil, why the world fears the awakened, and what happens when you step into your power. When you finally step through the hidden door within, when the soul codes begin to light up like stars in a forgotten constellation, you don't just wake up. You return. You return to a truth that has always been waiting. You return to a self that was never lost, only buried. And with this return comes something the world is not prepared for: your presence. The moment you awaken, the world begins to react, not with applause, not with celebration, but with resistance. Why? Because an awakened being is dangerous to every lie that holds the system together. You become a mirror. that reflects the illusions of others. You become a frequency that disrupts the sleep of those still dreaming. Your very existence becomes a challenge to the narratives that have been coded into society like viruses, narratives of limitation, fear, separation, obedience. The world fears the awakened because they cannot be controlled. They cannot be bribed by fame, manipulated by shame, or pacified by comfort. They don't need external validation because they've tasted the divine within. They don't bow to false gods because they've become temples of truth, and so they are cast out. Not always literally, but energetically. They are misinterpreted, mocked, misunderstood. They're called arrogant when they're just clear. They're called cold when they've simply stopped leaking their energy into dead relationships. They're called dangerous because they are. And yet, the truly awakened do not fight back with violence or ego. They don't seek revenge. They don't try to convert. They simply stand. They stand in their knowing. They move with purpose. They speak with a frequency that awakens something in those ready to hear it. They walk into rooms and shift the energy without saying a word. They become the embodiment of the very thing the world forgot was possible. But this power is not without its final test. The last veil is not external, it is internal. It is the temptation to use your power to dominate rather than liberate. It is the seduction of becoming a false light, of using your knowledge to manipulate instead of heal. This is the final gate, and many fail. They awaken, but then they fall into the trap of spiritual ego. They build kingdoms instead of communities. They seek followers instead of freedom. But the true chosen ones know better. They remember the vow. The vow is not written in words. It's carved into the soul. It says, "I will not awaken to escape the world. I will awaken to serve it." And so they become the ones who walk between worlds. Not saints, not saviors, just real, present, dangerous in their love, unshakable in their purpose, unstoppable in their devotion to the truth. This is not a fantasy, this is not a myth, this is you. If you've made it this far, if something inside you is trembling with recognition, then you already know. You are not watching this by accident, you were guided here, pulled by the gravity of your own soul calling you home. And now, you stand at the edge of the final veil. You can turn back and pretend you never saw. You can go back to the sleep of comfort, distraction, and denial. Or you can step through. But know this, once you cross, there is no return. The world will never look the same. You will lose people. You will lose identities. You will lose illusions. But in their place, you will gain something eternal. You will gain you, the real you, the you that remembers, the you that heals, the you that carries the forbidden abilities not as tools of control, but as instruments of awakening. So I leave you with one final question, not to answer with your mind, but with your life. What would happen if you stopped pretending to be small and finally became who you were born to be? The world is not waiting for more followers, it's waiting for more awakened beings. It's waiting for you. Now go, remember, and rise.